Hello and welcome to my geometry nodes tutorial. I'll be showing you how I made these Zoetrope animations. They're not morphing, they're just spinning very fast. If you'd like to see how they work, I'll put a link in the description for a Steve Mold video that explains this. Anyway, let's start with a new project. We're going to go into the geometry nodes tab. I'm just going to rearrange my windows to give myself a little bit more space. And then we're going to make a new geometry nodes modifier. We're going to add points. And the first thing we're going to do is add a combine XYZ because we want to do work on the individual components. And I went ahead and plugged in the points to the output so I can visualize them. So now we want to add an index from read geometry and plug it into X. So when you turn up the point count, you can see that each point has the distance of its index, and it goes all the way to 8. And now I'm going to plug the count into the group input so I can duplicate it around because we're going to use this multiple times. Now I want to divide the index by the count, and that'll give me a range of 0 to 1, but it's actually 0 to just a little bit less than 1 because the index does not the index starts at 0 and the count starts at 1. So I'm going to do a subtract 1 and drop that on the count. So now you can see that the range goes from all the way from 0 to 1. I'm just going to turn on snapping so I can just kind of organize things a bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a rotate vector, and that'll take the vector of each point and rotate it by a specific amount. So I'm going to take the index and this divide node and duplicate it, and then I'm going to duplicate the divide. I'm going to plug that in and then change the first node to multiply. And so what I'm going to do with this multiply is multiply by tau, T-A-U. And that'll rotate each point by a full rotation. And then I want to divide by a specific amount. We're going to be rotating around the z-axis. So the specific amount I want to divide by is called the golden ratio, which is 1.618. And it's actually a irrational number, so I'm going to put in the actual definition, which is 1 plus the square root of 5 over 2. And you got to make sure you have all the parentheses there. And that gets you this nice spiral here. And when you go to crank up the number of points, you can see that, let me zoom in on that. You can see that it just gets more and more dense, but it kind of looks like all the points are moving together. I'm just going to put this at about 100 points right now. Alright, so now I'm going to just clean up a little bit again. I just like putting all my nodes kind of close together so they don't get in the way of other stuff that I'm working on. So next thing is to add an instance on points, and we're going to use all these points as the points for it. And then I'm going to duplicate the group input and just use the cube that I get. It's just the default cube. The next thing I'm going to do is plug the rotation into the rotation, and that will rotate the cubes the same amount as the points are around the origin. So I want to add a transform geometry on the group input so I can just kind of make it look a little bit different. So I'm going to rotate by 45 degrees on X, and I'm just kind of rotate Y until the point is aligned with the X-axis. I'm also going to scale it down a bit so it's a little bit easier to work with. Let's do 1. I'll plug the instances back into the output so we can see what it looks like now. And we're almost there. There's a few more things to just get it working. First we're going to add another transform geometry. And we're only going to use this to rotate it. And we want to rotate that golden ratio angle. You can call it the golden angle for each point. Actually, sorry, not for each point, for the whole thing. And I like to use a driver for this, so I type in hashtag frame. You can also use the scene time node, which also has the frame, but I just like using the driver. So as the frames progress, you can see that the whole thing rotates by a specific amount, but it looks like the things are just moving inward. But we kind of want them to move outwards most of the time. You can make them move inward, but I like them to go out. So I do a subtract. I just set it to 0 because it doesn't really matter, but it doesn't add or subtract anything. And we just want to move that noodle to the bottom input to make it reverse. And you can switch back and forth to make it do whichever direction you want. And that's pretty much all it takes to get working on a flat plane, but I'm going to do some things to make it a little bit more interesting and dynamic. First of all, just clean up and hide that. So the first thing I want to do is add some stuff to this X position. First thing is going to be float curve, and that will let me kind of mess with how it moves from 0 to 1. And the next after that, I want to do a map range, which takes the 0 to 1 and lets me define a different range. So you can see how the float curve goes from 0 to 1. And then we want the minimum and maximum to change. So the maximum is the outside diameter, and the minimum is the inside diameter. So you can see that now they start at 1 and go to 3.4, but I'm just going to change that back to 1 for now. You can, with the float curve, you can make it accelerate or decelerate. I'm just going to reset that for a minute. And then I'm going to duplicate these with a Control-Shift-D to keep the first connection. You can see that those are still connected there. And I'm going to plug this one into the Z-axis. So now you can see with that float curve, it's going from 0 to 1 as it moves outward. And I'm just going to flip this around so it goes from 1 to 0 instead, and curve it out a bit. And I'll just tweak the X acceleration just a little bit. That should be fine. And the next thing I'm going to do is modify the instance rotation. The node I'll use for that is called rotate rotation. I'm going to duplicate the combine XYZ so I can just use one component. Then I'm going to copy over all the way from the group input to the map range from one of the positions. And I'm going to plug that into the y-axis of the combine XYZ. Something's going wrong here, so I'm going to tweak some things to try to get it working. So I guess the problem is that I forgot to check the local rotation over here. So now when I put a value in the map range, it'll rotate the points as they go from the inside to the outside. I'm going to pause it to show that the minimum will rotate the beginning and the maximum will rotate the outer ones. And that should be okay right there. And you can see how the points kind of rotate as they move outward. Another thing I want to do is modify the scale as it moves outward. So what I'm going to do is copy this section again. I'm going to reset the map range back to 0 and 1. And then I'm going to plug that directly into the scale of the instance on points. Now you can see as it starts at 0 and it goes out to 1. And then I'm going to tweak it a bit to where they start a little bit bigger, so they're all kind of mashed together, and end bigger, so they're all kind of mashed together. I think that's good. Now you can see how they all kind of scale and rotate and move outward, and it's just all kind of one cohesive part. So that's basically everything to get this going. I am going to add one more thing, and that's a store named attribute. I'm going to call this distance. And we're going to plug the output of the float curve into the value, because we want the range to be 0 to 1, because we're going to use a color ramp in the shading. So let's go ahead and switch to the shader editor. And this is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to add an attribute and call it distance. And we're actually going to switch to the instancer. And I guess something I forgot to do in geometry nodes was change the domain of the store named attribute to instance, because that's what it needs to be. So now I want to grab the factor and put that into a color ramp. And then plug the color into there. And you can already see that it goes from black to white. But we're just going to give it some color. So I'll do like a yellow on the inside and a red on the outside. And that's basically all it takes to make this Zoetrope. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. If you like this video, please like, and if you're not already subscribed to me, please subscribe. Go check out that Steve Mould video to see why this effect works. Anyway, have a good day, and I hope I'll see you again.